All right, we're good to go.
All right.
Awesome. So Jonathan, you said you followed my channel for a little bit. I don't know how long. When did you find it?
I think it was about a month or so ago, maybe like a month and a half. I think
Okay.
you kind of were commenting on some of my stuff, so I was, checking your channel out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I noticed you easily. You're like you're like the expert on semen retention and nofap, you know?
Uh,
The big guru, the big kahuna in this space right now, I guess. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for participating in this broadcast recording. This is Jonathan from Sexual Kung Fu on YouTube, and my name is Joseph Darling from Men of High Value channel. So today we're gonna just have a small podcast, asking questions back and forth a little bit. I've got a list of questions for Jonathan because he knows his stuff. And if you haven't seen checked out his channel, definitely go and do that. Sexual Kung Fu. So yeah, you noticed my channel, but I noticed yours because I was I'm very fascinated with ejaculation control. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that probably a little bit at the end. Because I'm married. I've been married for 10 years. And one of the things that happened with me was I had 5 years of complete abstinence, no ejaculation, pretty much at all,
Mhm.
between 18
Yeah.
and 23. And then at 23, I finally got married as a virgin. And I was like, at that time, I just started, ejaculating all the time. And all the benefits that I had, I
Mhm.
I didn't even think that it was because of ejaculation that I was beginning to kind of lose myself in a sense
Mhm.
and losing
Yeah.
my confidence, losing my power. And she just took complete control in the relationship. And within 3 years, she was just like, okay, like, we really have to fix our relationship or this is going to go downhill fast. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I've always had high confidence levels and always felt I could get pretty much any girl I wanted if I wanted to. And and I was the best husband in the world, so it didn't make any sense. And that's when I started kind of figuring out things about women, but also ejaculation control became a very big thing that I wanted to learn about. So anyway, that's just a little bit background of what kind of started me on this path of semen retention and also ejaculation control since I was married. But
Mm.
how did you find the topic itself?
Yeah, good question. So I was really into like yoga, meditation, things like this. So sort of these ancient philosophies. And I stumbled upon a book by Montauk Chia called The Multi-Orgasmic Man, and just,
Fantastic.
turned
Got
me on
it.
to the concept like, oh, maybe ejaculating every time I'm, uh, ejaculating frequently, maybe that's not such a good idea. And then I started to experiment with that, and it was like, even going a few days, I noticed a huge difference. I was like, okay, there's really something to this. So, I really studied this stuff deeply and made it a lifestyle.
Amazing. Like, so how long ago was that specifically? Like, when did you get the book?
That was let's see, that was back in 2013, so almost 6 years ago now.
Okay. And what was going on in your life at that time? How come you were interested in those topics? What kind of pushed you to search for it?
Yeah, so I was broke. I wasn't making any money. I really lacked confidence in approaching women and things like that. And
Hmm.
I was always, yeah, more of the yin, feminine type in my relationships with women. I was seeing this play out, and
Same thing
and
with me. I had
yeah,
this
yeah.
issue. Yeah.
I mean, it's common with a lot of guys now, but yeah. And so, and also I always felt that there was a deeper aspect to sexuality that that I was missing out on, because I was very developed in my spiritual path, but sex was still this very animalistic, sort of lower impulse thing. And so it was like, well, how do I integrate these things? How do I really make the most of my sexual power? And that's really what led me to study in a lot of Taoist and yogic practices and the art of sexual kung fu.
Amazing. So so were you having partners at that time or were you in any relationship? during that time frame, or?
When I first got into it, I was I was single for a long time. You know, I spent almost 2 years being just by myself, basically celibate, because you know I'd been in these relationships that were just not healthy. They were not ending well, and I was like, you know, I need to like change something about myself before
Okay.
you know I'm able to get into my ideal relationship. So yeah, it was just a long period of developing myself, developing my energy, and learning to change my connection to my sexual energy.
Awesome. This was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because on my channel, you might have noticed that I tell the guys that uh like temporarily put girls on pause. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh
Because
yeah.
you've got so much opportunity in your life. And if you focus on women and attracting women and using nofap for that purpose, then you're basically losing out on the future 10x girl you could have had, you know, in and instead you're choosing to focus on the girl that you can attract right now with being the person you are right now. So
That's a really
you're
great
kind of,
point. Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of mentioning it right now in what you're saying, that you took some time off. You took a celibate time, and I mean, are you grateful that you did that? Like, was that a positive experience for you, or?
Definitely, definitely. You know, my my whole approach to relationships and how I relate to, you know, women just completely changed from that, because it was no longer like, you know, for so many people it's like they're trying to fulfill themselves with this external thing, like, oh, I need this person so that I feel happy, so that I feel full or whatever. But when you don't approach it in that toxic way, when it's instead like, okay, I'm happy just being who I am, I'm fulfilled within myself, then instead of like trying to take something from that person, you're overflowing and you have something to give them, and then it becomes this much more healthy where you're both overflowing and giving each other out of abundance instead of out of lack.
Exactly. Awesome. I really like that, man. I didn't even know. I didn't even know that you actually had a period of time when you were celibate, and that's like, that fires me up, because there's so many guys out there who are just like, they're so focused on women, man. I just think it's such a waste. And
Hmm.
I mean, and this comes from me, who was a virgin at, when I got married. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could say I maybe I don't have that much experience. I don't, know the aspects of it. But I just, at the same time, I know that if you're focused on yourself for a period of time, and you just get your thing right, just everything just kind of exponentially can take off from there. I also wanted to ask you, like, how did you find out that this is a career you wanted to make out of it? And also, what did you do before you started this path?
Good question. Yeah, before I was a musician actually. I was doing full time. I was doing like soundtrack work for like video games and things like that. So music
Okay,
was my main thing, and then you
right.
know I was really passionate about this work because it was so life changing for me. Because I see so many people in the world, they're struggling. That, as I mentioned before, sexuality is just this like it's this low impulse that drives people, and it's a huge driving factor in our life, but it's completely unconscious for the majority of people. So I saw how life changing it was for me to get this thing under control and to be able to work with it in harmony. And I really think that more people are doing this, that we'll see a lot of issues in the world, you know, be resolved. And so I became very passionate about spreading this knowledge with the world, and just very organically, you know, people were asking me to create trainings and things like that. So I started making courses, I started taking on clients, and it was, you know, I had no intention of making this a career. It just happened very organically.
And you, like, did you start making the YouTube channel immediately upon that time, or was that just like a few years later?
Yeah, it was. I had been doing this work, these practices for about. I was about 3 years in, the 3 or 4 years into my, you know, semen retention and sexual kung fu practice, and I made my YouTube channel, just started talking about some things, and yeah, interest started growing pretty quickly in it.
And that's when you started your first coaching clients as well, yeah? Or?
Mhm. Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 months in, I started, you know, having paid products and started taking on some clients, and it was about 10 months in, having created my YouTube channel, that I started doing it full time.
Amazing. That's so cool. Like, I also wanted to know, because I've had the experience now of having a YouTube channel for a long time without any growth whatsoever. Like, I was basically talking to myself on the camera for like 11 months or so.
Yeah.
With like, you know, I had 100 subscribers, but I think they miscalculated something wrong, and then one day like it just dropped completely. I don't know what happened. And then it just stayed at like 65, 67 around that time. And then I did a semen retention video, and it's just like boom, something happened.
Yeah.
So basically that's like the last two months I've had like 300 subscribers.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I actually started a YouTube channel where I was just going to talk about Qigong. You know, I'm really passionate about like Qigong and Tai Chi. And so I did a channel just kind of sharing some practices, and it was like, there was like nothing, you know, it was like crickets. So I was like, well, what if I start talking about, you know, semen retention, sexual practices? And it was just like, boom, you know? So I was like, okay, I guess this is what people want to hear.
But
But then
how
from there, I'm able to get them into the Qigong and like the, you know, self-improvement. So it all works out, I
exactly.
guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's kind of what I've seen as well. I'm noticing like when I'm more focused on one thing, then people are more intrigued and they stick around for a longer time, you know, instead of me talking about socialism and capitalism and business and money and all of that at the same time. It's coming, guys. It's coming, but you know, for now we got to focus on getting our energies right, you know.
Yeah.
Like the first year for you, like, was it a long time where you also just talked to the camera? There was no interaction. Like, what was your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty slow in the beginning, definitely. I remember the first time one of my videos got like 100 views. I was like, whoa, you know, and like I had a few comments. I'm like, wow, I'm like, this is blowing
This
up,
is
you know?
insane. It's blowing up.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
and then you know, yeah, my subscribers grew very, very slowly.
Yeah.
And then you know, it started growing a bit more quickly. And then last year, it was last October, one of my videos just blew up. You know, it's got like over 300,000 views. And from there, my YouTube's been growing a lot more quickly, and I'm up to just about to hit 15,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic. You've done a great job. Like, how many subscribers did you have after the first year? Do you remember?
First year, that was right about where it started blowing up. So it was about 7 or 8,000 or so. But right before that point, it was like, I think it was like 2,000 or less.
Yeah, there you go. Amazing. Amazing. So I've got a lot to learn from you, man. Uh, Quick thing about you. I thought you were from Sweden.
Okay. Yeah,
And
got some
yeah,
Swedish ancestry.
you have some Swedish ancestry, right? Exactly. So, but you have no connection with Sweden at all.
I don't know. I currently do
No.
not. No, I'm from the U.S.
Okay. Which state?
Idaho is where I grew up. I'm actually going to be moving soon. Kind of been
Okay.
traveling around with my partner. We're looking for a new place to live. Yeah, but I'm
Okay.
from Idaho, Northwest U.S.
Northwest US, Idaho. Awesome. I actually was a year in Utah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm close to there. Yeah.
Yeah, high school. That was one of my thing. Cool. So, I also then, in terms of semen retention, like, what's the longest streak you've ever done? Like, do you still count it, or?
Yeah, I'm not as obsessed about counting now, but the longest I've gone is about 3 months, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, I've found that after a month, it kind of like plateaus, which is, you know, what's great. And I've heard different studies that like after 3 months, your hormones actually start decreasing. So it may be a good idea to release at that point to like get it going again. So, you know, I hear a lot of different things,
Interesting.
but yeah, you know, I've kind
Interesting.
of experimented with what's worked for me. And what I found is that, you know, once you make this a lifestyle and you're holding for longer periods of time, if you do ejaculate, it's really not a big deal and you recover very quickly because you're
Yeah.
not in that depletion state anymore.
Right, right. That's kind of been my experience a little bit. Like, this is the first time since I got married that I've gone this long. Um, because we've had no problems in terms of her, like, I guess in the beginning we had sex like once or twice a week, and then but it wasn't enough for me, right? Because I was
Hmm.
constantly ejaculating, so I wanted more, right? And so she's kind of like bored with it. And then she came to a point where she was like, she wanted to practice her submission, like being more and more feminine as possible so that I could become more masculine type. She wanted me to get the power I needed to kind of succeed in business and stuff. And so at one point we started like practicing, let's just try having sex every single day for as long as possible and then see what happens. So we basically did, like, we literally had sex every single day, no matter what. And we had 2 kids at the time. So we had to like use babysitters and put them different places and like make sure we could get it in. And we actually had 165 days straight. And
Wow.
and we noticed that, like, yes, I improved, but it's kind of like we understood that there was more to it. It wasn't just our sexual relationship. I needed to understand her at a deeper level with other things as well. So very often people think that it's just about the sex in a relationship, and it is a huge aspect, but I think there's other aspects to it too. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more to relationships than just sex. Sex is just kind of tends to be more physical manifestation of the connection. But I think it's an important aspect, but it's not everything. Definitely.
Yeah. How long have you been with your current partner?
We've been together for about 2 years now.
2 years. All right. Cool. So how did you find her? Did she know about all of this beforehand, or I don't know if you maybe have shared this or not?
No, we met through a dating app, actually through Bumble, similar to Tinder.
Really?
And I got pretty lucky with it though, because she's a really, really amazing person. And but no, she had never heard about any of this stuff. So it was like, as we started getting intimate, I was like, okay, so I don't ejaculate typically when I have sex. I was like, I might as well just tell her straight up.
Yeah.
But she knew I was into like qigong and yoga and all this, stuff. So it was not really surprising. She dug it because I was able to perform a lot better in bed. So
yeah, and I mean this is also the reason why she's still with you. I mean, it's an important aspect, guys, right? Because that's also one of my comments on your show as well was like, if you're practicing semen retention and ejaculation control, is it going to create a deeper connection with the woman, which makes it harder for her to let you go, in a sense, right? And move on to the next guy. And then you said, yeah, definitely there's some aspects to it there that makes the bonding. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, it's like for a lot of men, sex is a way where they just discharge their energy, basically. It's like they're so focused on this point of ejaculation and orgasm release. Basically, that's what they approach sex as. It's like, okay, I need this release, right? Well, when you change your relationship to it, when it's like, instead of discharging your energy, when you hold on to that and you learn to move it throughout your body, you learn to recycle it internally. First of all, you're not losing energy, you're building energy, and it's very powerful. But at the same time, when you're using practices where you consciously exchange that energy with your partner, it forms a very deep and powerful bond. So yeah, it's very, very, very connecting for the people involved, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's going to feel very intimately connected to you.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I've recommended to people, like, I talk always about long-term committed partner, because like I understand what's happening in the world today when it comes to marriage, and how guys are like, I don't want to get married because there's so many horror stories and stuff like that. So I focus rather on long-term committed partner, because having just sex with random people, I'm kind of over it. I never started with it, but I'm kind of like, that's not what I would recommend, because I believe that in the end, the exponential growth, you have to have an exponential growth curve with a woman. You know what I mean? And I don't really feel like, I saw a YouTuber the other day, and he's like, yeah, I got 1,000 lays, now he's like, he had sex with 1,000 different girls, and I'm like, he's missing out. Like, me personally, like, I think he's missing out on what I have, because just the depth that you can get is amazing if you are the right guy. And that's,
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you know, it's maybe everyone has different needs, everyone has different desires and what works for them.
Absolutely.
But for me personally, I agree with you. And it's like, I heard someone say it's kind of like you could say like relationships almost like is reading a book. You know, would you rather read the first few chapters of several books, or would you rather just read one book to the end? You know,
Oh
so
my
I kind of like
gosh.
that
That's a
analogy of it.
very good analogy, man. Good
Yeah.
job.
Because it takes time to really get to know someone, really connect with them intimately. You know, we put up so many walls and boundaries in the beginning. So yeah,
Yes.
it's the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, no, but especially today, I think
Oh yeah.
the fact that women kind of, you know, they lock up. You can
Mm,
only get here and then no further. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And they miss out, the women miss out, and also the men miss out on that connection for sure. Um, I wanted to let's talk a little bit about ejaculation control now.
All right.
So I'm gonna just be open and honest about kind of my story when it comes to that, because like I feel personally premature ejaculation was a problem for me. But at the same time, I'm a perfectionist, so I like anything that is not me lasting longer than what she wants is premature ejaculation. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so this is why I became very fascinated with Montauk, for example. I also have his books, and I just it's started to read and try to understand the microcosmic orbit, but I've just struggled with it a lot. You know, trying to like maybe it's just because I've read the books like once, and
Mm.
the books are just kind of intricate and detailed and
His
sometimes
books, his
all
books
over the
pack like a
place.
ton. They pack so much information in. It's a bit difficult to learn from his books alone. That's why, you know, I found teachers to study with.
So you found teachers to study with, exactly. Um, but did you have the same experience though, like trying to read it and it was just like all over the
Yeah,
place, or?
definitely. I mean, I had pretty good success from the books alone in the beginning, but there was still a lot of unanswered questions. It was like, am I
Mhm.
doing this right? I'm not really feeling things in my body. So, yeah, using the books alone wasn't enough for me.
Right. Um, like what I experienced, I mean, I tried a lot of different things as well, and that's the thing. Like this is an art,
Oh
right?
yeah,
This is not just something you wake up one day and suddenly you've got ejaculation control and everything's solved. You know, I
yeah,
think in some ways it has a lot to do with confidence, and so the better your practice gets, the more confident you get, and so the easier it is, right?
definitely.
And I'm just kind of sharing what I know, and then you can kind of elaborate a lot deeper. But also the breathing aspects, you know, you speak a lot about that, and so yeah, just give us kind of like a run through of, like, let's say you're a completely new beginner, you're struggling with premature ejaculation. What would you say to this guy? Let's say he's actually passed the 90-day challenge of nofap. He's cleared his systems and he's developed some passive income, so he's ready to date. Tell us now what he should be focusing on in preparing for that date, or yeah, finding a girl.
Yeah, well, the important thing, you know, just give you a bit of an overview about my view of ejaculation control. It's like everything else in our life we train in, right? It's like when we want to get better at something, we train in it. And it's like, but sex is something that we just assume that we're going to be good at, you know, though we usually
Right.
aren't. So it's
Yeah.
like you've got to train yourself, and there's a lot of pressure there. You know, it's like uh, performance anxiety. You know, a lot of it's mental, but there's also physical aspects as well. So there's a lot, you know, which is why that's why it's sexual kung fu, right? Kung fu is that which requires daily practice. It's a discipline. So sexual kung
Right.
fu is developing your skills of sexual energy. So
Yeah.
the most important thing is as we said before, the breath. You know, that's the easiest way to keep yourself in a calm and balanced state. You know, ejaculation is a function of the sympathetic nervous system, right? We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The parasympathetic is active when we're calm, when we're relaxed, you know, when we feel at ease. And then when we're stressed, when we're in fight or flight mode, that's when the sympathetic is switched on, and that's what's triggering the ejaculatory response. So the easiest way to keep yourself in that calm parasympathetic state is deep, slow breathing from the belly. And so when you do this, when you're able to do this during sex, this gives you something to keep your mind on and keep yourself in your body, because typically during sex, we're so focused on our partner, there's so much excitement, we're just like focused outward, and that's drawing our energy out of us. And when you're aware what's happening internally, and the most simple way is managing your breath, deep, slow breathing. That keeps you calm. It keeps your awareness within yourself, and it keeps your energy from leaving your body so quickly. That's the most simple way to start controlling your ejaculation. Another aspect is more energetically. What's happening when we're aroused is our sexual energy is building genitals, and it cannot be contained there. It has to move somewhere because all this pressure is generating. And so it's going to move out the path of least resistance, which for most men is out the penis. And after, years and years of this pattern, that's built in. And so what you do instead is open up the body, because most men, they're so closed down with tension, they're so disconnected from their bodies that they're not able to move this arousal, feel this arousal in their body. It has to move out of their body. So when you open up the body, open up the energy channels, the microcosmic orbits, the first one, up the spine, down the front of the body, you now have a pathway for that arousal to move in, so that as it builds up, instead of shooting out the penis, it's circulating internally and it's building up. And this also leads to full body orgasms as well. So it's about cultivating that internal ability to manage your energy and to diffuse it throughout the body instead of externally, and being able to keep yourself in a calm state.
Exactly. Well, easier said than done, right?
Yeah, it is a process. That's why I always start men with more foundational practices. You can't just jump right into the aroused sexual work. You have to open up your body, learn to work with the breath, learn to clear tension from the body.
And that's kind of the thing that I didn't do. Like, because I have sex on a regular basis with my wife, and this is during the time I was learning it, I never really took the time to actually, for example, Qigong or yoga or breath exercises. Like, I've never really believed in breath exercises and meditation. Like, I've used prayer a lot in my life to kind of communicate and get my emotional stability. And because I have emotional stability in general in my life, and I'm like fired up at all times and all places type thing, I haven't really felt the need for meditation. So, but I still am not where I want to be when it comes to ejaculation control. So do you think that would definitely help a lot for me?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because like Qigong gives you, I always start people with this because it's this very simple practice, but it helps you to feel the energy move in the body, helps you to open your body up. And then that skill translate into your arousal, that then when you're aroused, you already know the pathways and you know that feeling of how to move that energy internally.
So yeah, what is the first exercise you give guys? If they have no, like, is it Qigong exercise that you give them? That
basically,
they should
yeah. The first thing I start with typically is emotional clearing practices.
Okay.
Where we often have so much baggage from the past, we need to clear this out before we start working with sexual energy, because sexual energy is so powerful, it can amplify everything, and we don't want to amplify our old unconscious patterns. So first of all, I teach some simple breathing exercises. I use transformational breath work and some practices to clear negative emotions from the body.
Okay. So, okay. I'm going to skip that a little bit because I don't think I have that much trauma. Like, people say that, like, we all have trauma, right? And I probably have some, but they must be very far in there because, like, I don't feel I have any. So, what would be the next step then after that?
Yeah. Next step is the microcosmic orbit. So open up this pathway, which is going to be the pathway for moving sexual energy through. Tell
me specifically how that one work. Okay, because I'll share with you what I know, okay? Because you have the Kegel exercises, and the Kegel exercises is basically, instead of shooting the ejaculation, you're bringing the energy back and up your perineum and up your spine. And then you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, like this. And then Montauk Chia talks about swallowing it, and so that it goes to your belly. Like, that's the only thing I know about the microcosmic orbit. And I've practiced it and it does work, and I do feel it, and I do feel that a lot of energy is brought throughout the body, but I still feel a lot of pressure there, right?
Yeah.
So tell me your version. How can I improve that one?
So there's so many different ways to work with a microcosmic orbit. I teach a method where, because first of all, you work with it without outside the context of sexual energy, just feeling energy moving through the orbit in general. So I teach a certain method where basically you focus on the lower belly center, which is called the Dantian. This is what the Taoists through Qigong, martial artists, they cultivate the center, because when you fill this center with energy, it's connected to all the meridians of the body, all the energy centers.
You mean the abs? Like the lower abs, or where?
It's for men, it's a few inches below the navel and then directly inside. So it's basically the very center of the body. It's a center of gravity, and it's not a physical location. It's energetic. It's like when you activate it, you feel it. You feel it energetically. It might feel like this hot. It might feel like really hot, really cold. You definitely feel this strong electrical sort of sensation here. And then once that's full, you start to spin. You sort of form this ball of energy, and you use your mind to spin it. You move it throughout the orbit, clearing all the areas of the orbit. That's one method of working with it. I also teach a Qigong form in my course where you use Qigong practices to help open this channel. That helps you to feel it more at a physical level, because a lot of us Westerners have trouble meditating. So using a movement form is very helpful for opening that as well. So it's basically you open up this pathway as much as possible, and then you start using practices like testicle breathing or a different power lock. They're called power locks exercises to start moving the sexual energy through that channel now that it's already open.
Right. Like no, this is just me. Like I still struggle with opening the pathway, because like, for example, now I completed 100 days now with semen retention. My wife is in America. I actually have 2.5 months where I can actually get this right, you know what I mean, without the sexual aspects of it and involving her. Like, I mean, that's gonna be great practice too, involving that. But if I could actually, be able to have the confidence before I join her again with this, then fantastic. So what's happening now is that at times I masturbate, but not to ejaculation, which by the way, for those guys who think that masturbation is all evil, it's not, because it's in the beginning you're doing it to ejaculate, and you're basically doing it as quickly as possible to get to the goal, and that is a very bad way to practice or to do that at all, because that's gonna basically habitually make you come quickly. So if you're gonna masturbate, then masturbate slowly and do it in a way that you would normally have sex, right? So now that I've passed those 90 days, now I want to practice using masturbation without ejaculation, and a lot of pressure is building up since the pathway thing is not clear for me. So I end up having these like sometimes the burning sensations, right, in the balls. And sometimes it's just like, it's just really hard under there, and I don't mind it. Yeah. I can live with it. I'm happy and excited no matter what, but it just sucks to like lay in bed and like you have this, you can fall asleep, and I fall asleep after 10 minutes, but it's still uncomfortable. So opening that pathway is my problem.
Yeah, and it's something you just need to work with regularly, through whether it's meditation or through the Qigong practices. You want to work that pathway for, that's why in my course I structure it so that the first few weeks we're not doing anything with like the sexual energy itself. We're not using aroused energy. We're just opening up the body, because it takes that preparation. And then once you're open, once things are flowing, then you can start to work with it in an aroused state and then start to play with that. And it's much easier now that the body's already open.
Okay, so in my case then, I mean, since I'm just opening up and just explaining everything, in my case then, it would be that I don't use masturbation. I rather, over the course of the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks, I do a daily practice of a Qigong exercise of some sort. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So where would I find that?
Well, I've got some different products available on my website. You know, I've got some free Qigong sessions on my YouTube channel. I even have a guided microcosmic orbit meditation on my YouTube. It's a simple practice. And then, you know, I've got my 6-week course, which I go deep into basically everything from the foundations to the advanced sexual energy practices. And I launch that every 3 months.
Okay.
Because I had the same, you know, I had the same issues that you're talking about. It was like, this isn't really working. And what I found was, you know, after studying for years, and learning from different teachers, learning these practices, was that, yeah, the foundations, the non-aroused practice where you're not even working with the sexual energy are the most important, because, yeah, you need to get a grasp on your basic energy of the body, because the sexual energy, it's so volatile, it's so powerful, and we're often ingrained into our habits with it. So it's more difficult to start with the sexual energy.
Right. So it's kind of like I've skipped the basics. It's kind of like, well, why do you skip the basics, Joseph? Like, go back to the basics. The fundamentals is what matters, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you need to learn the alphabet to write stories.
Exactly. Cool. Well, I'm definitely going to check out. For those of you who are watching this, definitely check out his 6-week course, and check out his breathing exercises and the guided microcosmic orbit. That's awesome, man. I'm very grateful that I found your channel, and for everyone, like, I absolutely love this topic. I love relationships, and this is a very important aspect of it, in my opinion. So all guys should master ejaculation control. Like, I talk about power a lot on my channel, and that is something that you should strive for. And there's no more important power to have than to choose how long you last, and the actual erection you have. If you have erectile dysfunction, you don't have any power, right? And if you're not lasting for as long as the woman desires, again, she wins, and you don't want her to win. So that's why, in my opinion, this topic of full ejaculation control is critical, and there's not many places you can learn about it that's easy to understand. So I'm very grateful you do the work that you do.